Welcome, guys. Um, so, let's see, slideshow. Beginning. There we go. So, initially I was thinking when I had to move to cover for the presentation, just to show you the work I've been doing with the trucks and the brakes and whatnot. And I thought, let me give you some context. And I know most of you maybe probably none of you are going to go down this route, but at least it'll give you an idea of what was going on in my head as I was putting this together. And I'm gonna make a little bit of a case as to why go down this route and some of the challenges, which like, do I really want to do that? So there's three topics for tonight, basically. What's the motivation or impetus to doing the AP program? What are some basics, like the categories? How do they assess what's involved? And then the realization I had was years ago when a couple of fellas came to an open house. You know these guys, Bill, Dick Gunther and Herb Gishlick. And I think both of these guys are master model railroaders. And they were looking at the layout. And I think it was Dick that said, Tom, you've got pretty much everything you need to start doing the AP. You probably have some things that are already accomplished. So I thought, okay. So I looked into it, and then that's what got me rolling. So we're going to focus specifically on the CARS Achievement Program, and I'll speak more about that in a minute. So the impetus, it is this. It's the learning, it's the camaraderie, and it's seeing how my skills can improve. And what was so compelling was to have fellas look at your work, and their intention is not to be critical so much as it is to help you see what you can do to improve what you're doing. And it's all done with that intention. Um, and I found, well, I'm a kind of a gregarious. I like being around people as it is. So it was fun listening and watching, and then hearing their feedback around some of the things I could do to make it even uh, more detailed or more prototypical. So why? Here's some of the reasons, and some of these I've actually pulled off the site. This is kind of cool. It's like a travel guide to help you on your journey into model railroading. So again, it offers ways to look at how you approach your modeling and your building of your railroad. It's an incentive to learn and master the crafts and skills. And again, this is kind of triggered by the conversations and the input that your colleagues have as they're judging what you're building. And it's stimulating to see what more you can do. And especially it's an acknowledgement, because people are really focused on what you're doing. And a lot of the times you get people that come by and say, wow, this is really nice, this is really nice. But this really got granular around what they appreciated and whatnot. So it really stokes the furnace, if you will. It's a great source of ideas. And again, this goes back to the fact that when they're commenting on what I've done, there's things that they mention that I never would have even thought of. And when I go to make the improvements, it's a much more appreciation from my point of view. I mean, for those of you that build, you know how, at least for me, exciting it is when you get closure, you finish a project, and you're pretty proud of what you've accomplished. So the categories toward a master model railroad, and I just want to be clear here, the intent is not to get this MMR certificate. That's not it. It's really about enjoying the process along the way. There's that. So the 11 possible certificates are available, and there's these four categories. So in model railroad equipment, it's locomotives and cars. So there's two certificates there. The settings category includes structures, sceneries, and prototype models. So there's three more certificates. Engineering and operation, is a civil engineer or engineer electrical and chief dispatcher. I'm not going to go into any details around these. It's explained very well on the NMRA site. And then service to a hobby. So this is in the volunteer zone where you can be an official, a volunteer, or an author. So this is focusing on cars, and what they require is that you build 8 operable scale models, which means they can run on a track and they'll take a turn. Uh, 4 of those got to be four different types of the 8. So that means you could do a box, a flat, a passenger, and a conductor's car. Uh, if you double them, that's fine, but as long as you do 4 different ones within the 8, and then each of these 8 need to be super detailed, all of them. But 4 have to be scratch built. All right. It can't be a kit, can't be kit bashed. And then of these 8 cars, you got to have 4 of them that hit the 87.5 points required to obtain the certificate. And then the big hump for people is submitting this, what they call SOQ, or Statement of Qualifications, which is a write-up. And I'm going to speak to that now, like what's entailed in the write-up. And this is where I have because I know when we've been encouraging people, because I'm a judge, and when we encourage people to take it on, they get a little bit backed up with the write-up requirements. But to each their own. So within the SOQ, here are the 5 areas that you want to write up. One is how you built it. The next is all the details that you've put on there. The conformity, of course, is the degree to which it matches either the diagram or the photograph that you're using or the illustration. Your finishing and lettering, of course, is everything that is with color or the documentation, but the lettering that you use on the car, and scratch building. Now, here was the lesson learned for me. If you build a car that's a kit or kit bashed, that almost immediately takes out the scratch building section because there's nothing scratch built. It's already there for you. So if you want to enter that for a certificate, then you need to make sure you emphasize the other 4 categories. So what I've been doing is emphasizing details and finishing lettering, which will take you over the top. But so those are the 4 areas or 5 areas. And then I'm going to show you my approach and the build that I took on. So the first was using that classic March 69 model railroad article of the freight cars. And the Georgia Railroad boxcar was the diagram I presented. And this was for just a kit build. And I used BTS, of course. And this is the photo that I presented with them as well, so they had something to go by as well as the diagram. But I specifically noted that I was using the diagram, not the photo, as my template for the kit build. Then it got down to the trucks because I wanted to add brakes. So this was going to be 3 different slides, actually. The one on the left, you can see on the top there, that's a piece of the Shapeways. This is the brake beam off the Shapeways arch bar truck. And this is actually side frames from a guy that we used to know, Jerry Daub. He had Keyport Car and Foundry. And then what you had to do is either put a wood beam in or a piece of brass stock. I chose a piece of balsa. And I thought, you know what? I couldn't get this thing to glue on using Loctite. I was going to try to attach this piece of wood to the brake beam supports and then glue them onto the bolster here. It wasn't working, and these 2 were short. So I was thinking through this, and I thought, wow, why don't I just use some piano wire and drill some holes through the beam? Well, I tried drilling holes, but it brought the brake beam supports too close to the axles. Then the other little epiphany I had is like, wow, instead of drilling, let me just notch these and I can lay the supports right on there and it doesn't come anywhere near the axles. So the one thing I found out was because I was just experimenting. So sure enough, I picked a piece of wire that was too short and I had to pull it out and redo it. So this is the redo. There's the 4x6 beams. And you can see here's the Shapeways truck. And what I did is I just detached the wood beam from the truck. And these two little things here are scrap styrene that I shaped in the brake shoes. And then I measured or lined up approximately where the wheel treads are and made a notation on the wood beam so I knew where to put the shoes. And here they are attached. You can see this is a little cattywampus here. I was just setting it up just to get a feel for it. But here's the final product, and it's all been straightened out. I did some rust color on the shoes, just wood for the wood beam, and that's pretty much the brake. And here it is on the car that I submitted. Here's the brakes down here. You can see it from here, almost lined up. It was pretty good. And then from beneath, just a wood screw into the bottom. And this is what the car looks like.
Here, a question.
Yeah,
In reality, would those brake beams have been hung from the car body, or would they have been part of the truck uh,
I think they
unit?
would have been part of the truck, but
Yeah,
the mechanism would have been part. That was one thing I was looking at the other day. John Ott sent me an image, and evidently there is a. Uh, so here's the brake wheel. Can you see my cursor?
yeah,
Yes.
So right here, there was a bar that went longitudinally back. So it would have come into here and connected with some kind of mechanism that was attached to the truck.
right.
But I couldn't put all that in because it impedes the pivoting of the truck. Or at least I haven't figured that out yet. But I
Yeah,
think it would have been attached to the truck, Bill.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Uh, I was thinking this would have made it because of the details and whatnot, but it missed. One of the things I got dinged on, if you look at, let me see if can I zoom that in? No, can't zoom it. Shoot. Um, if you look at the W, it's a little bit low. The A is right on the line between the two boards, but the
Mm,
W is a little bit lower. So they dinged me on
Yeah.
that because they weren't lined up. And the other thing was the wing on the W was missing. And what they said was the easy fix on that is put a little bit of white paint, maybe some white chalk powder, and further uh, weather the lettering so it doesn't look so obvious that a piece of your dry transfer is missing. All right. Good idea. Good idea. But that's how, some people might say, man, they're really nitpicky, but you want to show the best work you can do. And clearly I could do better than that.
no, it's a weathered car. It's supposed to look beat up. You know what I mean?
It does. They gave me good points for that, but that letter dinged me. Now, you're like Joe. Joe would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. That's all right. Um, so I went back to the boxcar for the scratch build, right? And I did a few things different than from the BTS kit. So um, here I just wanted to show you the difference between a Keyport truck and a Shapeways. Clearly, there's more detail. The advantage to the Keyport is it's brass, so you got some weight for these cars. Uh, but for this, I think I used the Keyport trucks because I already had them made, uh, and I just built added the wood beam brakes to it,
Mm.
and you can see that it's connected with this is a U channel piece of brass, uh, and there's a tongue that comes off of the frame that fits perfectly into this channel, and then you tap it. And of course, you drill this out for your screw into the bolster or into the car. And what I did to make these brakes, here's a 4x6 piece of wood. This is the Shapeways truck, and it was just glued to the bottom of the beam. And you can see here that what I did was I just sanded the brass or filed the brass to give it some tooth for the Loctite to kick in. And this is just a plain, what is this? This is a lifelike color. It's called wood. And I just painted it wood, although the trucks have their blue tone to it for the car. This one I think I did as green because it's going to be in Atlanta and West Point. Some of the details I added. So all of this had to be shaped to fit in. One thing that they didn't ding me on, which I thought they would, is you can see this gap between the coupler pocket and the beam. I forgot to fill that in, but they didn't hit me with that. So some of the details were the brake wheel bracket, the chain, the wheel, of course, all of these. I thought they were going to dig me on this hole too with the grab iron, but they didn't. And here you can see the brake beam truck underneath. Bum, bum. Something else let me see, is it in this one? Yeah. So here's a sway back, right? So what I forgot to do, I forgot to put carlins in there to keep the roof arched or radial. And all you have to do is make sure that your write-up reflects the car. So I told it in the write-up, I said, I intentionally left out the carlins to give the roof a sway back worn look. Yeah, it's like, oh, yep, that's what you did. Okay, so there's ways to get around those guys,
Well
right?
done.
I thought, I'm not going to take this thing apart. No way. And then what
I
I
have a
did,
question.
yeah,
Are you going to edit out this section
yeah,
before you post it?
nah, I already got the certificate. They can't take it back. And the thing I wanted to do is I really wanted to highlight some of the details. So the hinges, this is just index card cut 3 inches by 9 inches or 3 inches by whatever it is. And then these two pieces here, I added these as like the door latch that you see. So they really like that. The top of the roof is a piece of Kleenex tissue.
Whoa.
And that is to replicate a tarred canvas, which they did back then. The other thing they highlighted was the dirt, the smudges, the weathering of the wood. Yeah, so I got a lot of points for the what do you call it? Finish and lettering. Another thing I did, which is what they liked, uh, on the model, when you put the decals on, some folks just lay it on there and they hope that the micro scale sol, S-O-L, thins them out enough where they blend right into the grooves of the siding. Well, what I do is I do the set, I put on the decal, I put on another coating of the set, then I do the microsol, and I'll do like 3 or 4 coats, maybe 5 coats of the microsol, and then I'll do like 3 coats of the dull coat to make sure it's really hardened. And then I'll go back the next day with a sharp X-Acto, and I'll slice very slowly along the groove to show that indentation where the letters are so that they can get the feel that either the paint didn't get in there or what have you. That was another thing that I got a thumbs up for from those guys. So I mentioned these construction details, conformity, blah, blah, blah. All right. My write-up was 3 pages overall. So I'm just going to show you a sample of some of this stuff. So under construction, to give you an idea, the frame and deck are board by board construction. You want to emphasize the things that you did that show the work and the effort that you put into it. And then first, the frame was constructed including longitudinal beam supports. So underneath the car, I mean, the whole thing is scratch built. Lumber parts are adhered with white glue, blah, blah. Ends of the deck were cut open, right? Bolsters required shims, blah, blah. So I go into all the details just about construction. One of the places that you can get tripped up is when you're talking about construction, it's easy to drift into something else like conformity. So that's why it's good to have someone that's been through this kind of guide you. In the details, I included the tarred canvas, the Kleenex, um, that was the tissue. Then I had all kinds of other things about the details that I put in there. And another thing that they appreciate, instead of having to read sentence after sentence, I put the bullets to highlight what are the details so they can look at a bullet, look at the car, as opposed to trying to scan all of the text. And this will give you an idea of most of the detail, the super details that I put in here. And then it can see that and then refer to it and say, oh, yep, this looks good. Okay, you got that? Yep. Conformity. I emphasize the fact that I worked off this diagram. So if you have multiple images or whatnot, you definitely want to tell them which one you worked off because that's what they're going to scan to make sure it matches what your model is. And I even clarified that although this was labeled for the Georgia Railroad, I made it into the Atlanta West Point. And I don't know if I made this up or not, because this type of construction was common for both lines. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea. But they don't know. But as long as you reference that in the write-up, it doesn't matter. And then I highlighted conformity elements, blah, blah. And then finishing lettering, I told them it was brush painted, the colors that I used, what was painted what. And this way, again, it's another reference for them so that they can see, does this really match what I wrote up? And then for scratch building, since this was a scratch built car, everything about it is actually in the construction section. So instead of rewriting it again, and similar to what I did with details, I highlighted them with bullet points. So it's an easy reference for them when they go to check out the car. And you got to kind of put your judge's hat on when you're doing this. And then for scratch building, blah, 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 here, didn't I just do that? Oh, yeah. I have the same slide here. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same. I put this right at the top. It's board by board. Every single board on there is individual, including the doors, including the caps on the end beams that are curved. Right. And then lastly, these are the cars that I plan on submitting. Actually, I submitted the open cattle car. And although this was technically a kit bash because it's built on top of a Mantua frame, what I did is I put wood framing along the base of the base of the car and gave it some texture. I left the truss rods and the queen posts, but this car is board by board construction. And they were gobsmacked with that. And they said, how'd you glue it? I said, white glue. And what they look for globs of glue that hadn't been cleaned off. And there wasn't one. And the lettering was great and the finishing was great. So I think I got 90 out of the 87.5 points on this one. With the scratch built boxcar, I got, I think, close to 100 on that one. But this is going to be, the Adams Express is going to be submitted as a scratch build. I'm going to highlight the fact that these are swing trucks. I'm going to use the image in Abdul's book and the LOC, which shows the swing trucks. I'm going to tell them that the reason that these two beams on the swing truck are lighter because they were recently replaced. Highlight the fact that it's been weathered and worn. The door was actually scratch built, and those separations between the windows, those are individual pieces of wood because I tried to cut them out and I kept on splitting the wood. So I said, screw it. I'll just build it up to here and then put these things in and put a cap on it, and it worked fine. Metal roof, blah, blah. With the conductor's car, this is going to be entered as a scratch build as well. This will be kind of cool. It's different. One of the guys said you ought to put Lincoln pins in the car. It's a detail that they can give you points for. I said, good idea. But when I took this picture, I realized they might not nick me for it because there's so much to look at. But I got to clean up this paint job in here because some of the blue in the siding leaked into the inside here. So I might want to, just clean that up or do something. And then I've got an interior I got to take some pictures of to show that, that there's detail that goes inside as well. And then, yeah, so these will be the next 3 that go in, plus I got a 4th one. And I think it's a slam dunk to get the certificate for cars. And then, so this was just an attempt to incentivize anybody that has a layout or plans on building one. The golden spike is the easiest one to get. And most of you guys probably have, if you have a layout, already have this stuff. You got 6 units of rolling stock. That's it. That's all you need. 5 structures, scratch built. 8 square feet of layout, including scenery. So the golden spike pretty much is a fairly simple one to pull off if you ever think about doing it. And it's fun to have, like I say, for me, it's the camaraderie. To have these guys come over, talk about it, learn some stuff, and it really builds the energy and the motivation to continue doing more. So that's the show. Any questions, comments? Hey, Joel.
On the piano wire, Tom,
Yeah.
you might consider making it slightly longer and then bending it so the brake shoes actually sit more to the side of each wheel. They're kind of sitting up here.
Yeah.
And I think that if you made that wire long enough, you could bend it around so it doesn't interfere with the wheels, and the brake shoes are hanging
Closer to
centered
the
with the
side
wheel.
instead of the top.
Yeah,
Cool.
but this is good stuff, Tom. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Let's see. Cool. All right. Yeah. So let's see. April. Oh, April, we have our guest speaker, I think. The fellow that Charlie turned me on to.
The third Thursday?
Yeah. Yeah, from now on it's gonna be third Thursday unless there's stuff to like jam in. Or somebody has a delay of some sort. Joel, how you doing?
Oh, fine. Just
Cool.
I was down in I just got back, spent a week in DC with the family. Sorry, DC, not you, but the District of Columbia. And well, finally got my finally stopped for the 20 minutes it takes to get the research card for the archives. Only walked by the building, 4,700,000. I mean, it's like in the middle of the National Gallery of Art. So, but I'm usually working. It's hard to go, over. If I'm at the gallery, I'm working.
What card did you get?
Say again?
What card did you get?
The research where you can go into the archives and pull things out, and all those boxes of U.S. military railroad records that I want to peruse. So yeah, the one that because McCollum, who probably was the guy really running the U.S. military railroad the entire time, regardless of Mr. Halp, who was really the operations guy that they sent out to go yell at people. He was the plant ops guy. But McCollum, at the end of the war, spent a year, disposed of all of the U.S. military railroad property, wrote up his final report, and boxed all of the records they had and sent them to the Quartermaster Archives, which have in turn eventually ended up at the National Archives. So you have whatever he could collect. So I have got to go through there and look at it. I know Bernie's pulled things out of there, and there's just box after box after box of stuff. Telegraphs,
Wow.
all those things. The car reports, which is where I found the word caboose. In 1863, they had
man.
9 cabooses,
Wow.
and then I suddenly realized a lot of the things that I was thinking were cabooses further down inside there, box cars converted to office cars and kitchen cars.
Wow. That's cool.
The ones, like at Manassas, where you see that the train where they're repairing the tracks, and it's a big work train. So I said, that's good. And then there is the wonderful, I've been joined by the cat who has to join Zooms, wrecking car, which was the old Orange and Alexandria baggage car. And
Really?
yes, and then behind it, it has a crane car with a standing boom. You see it deployed in some photographs. If you look carefully, you'll see it deployed in photographs where they're recovering trains. And so it's kind of cool, because when you really look at it in Alexandria, the boom's laying down because it's just held up by cables. When it's deployed, it's upright like that, and then
Really?
braced in with cables, much like you would have on a ship. And was being used. It appears. I suddenly started looking in photographs and found pictures of that thing like 7 or 8 times.
Really? If
Yes,
it's
in
not your
use.
trouble, I would like to build one of those if you can send me a photo.
I certainly can. I've got it.
Wow. And then, so the boom car would be attached to another car?
Yeah, it's attached to the baggage car that has painted lovely on the side, U.S. Military Railroad wrecking car.
So that was for the guys to travel in, I guess, and that's where
Yes.
the tools were?
And then later they built, they added, there's the shot at Manassas that Roger sticks up every once in a while. Hi, Roger. And along there, you will see a telegraph car right by the telegraph pole, and the guy up on the pole.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then you'll see
yeah.
the crew and the kitchen cars, and they're all converted box
I'll
cars.
be there.
The thing that makes them different than cabooses, if you look at the roofs, they have a lot more vents. They have stoves, lights,
Wow. Okay.
and those things. It has the lantern vents and it has stove vents. So
Right.
it's fascinating. I'll send you that stuff.
That'd be cool.
Okay.
Hey, speaking of cars, I remember when Austin turned us on to this presentation of Gettysburg Railroads by Scott Mingus. And
Yes. Know Scott well. I've known him for 30
he-
years, off and on
great
at the War
guy.
Gaming.
He was talking about a couple of different cars, like a dirt car and a lot. So I asked him, I said, was there anything that really differentiated a dirt car from a coal car from blah, blah? And he said, not much. I said, the only car that would have been different might have been a lime car where there wouldn't have been any metal. But for the most part, my understanding is when you read about these different accounts and they describe these different cars, my thinking is, let's say they're gondolas or platform cars, that there was nothing really distinct about them. It's just that the crews knew that these were the cars that were always used for this purpose. There was not any kind of particular name or anything for it.
Absolutely. They reconfigured cars constantly. The stock car, I realized finally they had very few of those, and those were used for oxen, for wrecks. The bulldozers.
Oh,
You find in their written accounts how expensive and difficult it is to get oxen in the war zone. Wonder why. And so those were for those. When they shipped cattle, they just knocked post up on the side and threw a few of them on. There's not really much. Many times they actually shipped the cattle. They usually made the cattle walk.
no, I'll be damned. Okay.
They drove the cattle. But like when they were relocating from the Culpeper line to the Petersburg line, they did actually load cattle on the cars because there were records of how many cars of cattle and tons they shipped into Alexandria to reship to down to Petersburg.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. That who is it that's coming? Not April. I think he's in May. He's doing the Nashville and Northwestern. Brian, oh man, I forget his name. But he and another guy are going to be talking about that, and they're going to get heavily into the logistics of the operation. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys have dug up. That should be a fun presentation. That'll be in May.
Right, and I was researching the old Washington and Alexandria line.
Oh, okay.
Part of it is very heavily in use by the CSX in
Not
DC.
surprised.
They rerouted it because the old B&O station was actually right up at the west side of the Capitol, the big front looking down the mall. Over on the north side was the B&O station, and there was a
Right.
track that goes over to the Washington and Alexandria, and then across Long Bridge, and on down to downtown. A lot of those rights are still there. After the Civil War, when they did that, when they moved to the Union Station, the tracks now loop on the east side of the Capitol, come down Virginia Avenue, and then link back into the Maryland Street Avenue and so I was over there looking at that. It was real easy because you get off the train at L'Enfant Plaza, you're right there actually. And if you get off the VRE or Amtrak at L'Enfant, right there, you just come across those tracks. And I'm going to add that into my long run to give connection out. Its major siding goes down to the Arsenal, which is now Fort McNair. Because that was actually where they had lots of the hardware that was being shipped. Okay. So you have all those loads. You have the loads coming south on the B&O, and then the Arsenal producing. Washington D.C. had a lot of manufacturing.
I would think, yeah.
In the war inside the nation's capital, you had lots of shots of material, things being made. And the nice thing, of course, about that is all those things that are Army, they're complete records.
That's cool. This is the archives that you got access.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool.
I started pulling some stuff out. It's gotten kind of interesting. But I'm going to spend some time. If there's anything anybody would like me to look up, I will try.
Okay, you're on.
It's about. I'll be back up in a month.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that offer.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Cool. I'm going to stop the recording. There we go.